Okay, you may have to answer yes. Okay. Hi, good afternoon. It's Bill Curtis. I am with Creating Wealth from Life, and this is another in our client series. I have a young lady with me today. Her name is Sarah Harris. She is in Georgia, and she's been a client. She's been a banker. She's become her own banker, a little over a year ago. And she's here today to give her side of the story and tell, what made her do this and give a little insight. So, Sarah, if you want to introduce yourself and just explain, what was what made you decide to become your own banker? I know you deal with a good friend of ours, Journey Walker, and you had been working with her. She sent you to me. So how did that all go about?
So I've been friends with Journey let's start. I am Sarah Harris. I have been doing my own banking for a little over a year. I was referred by Journey Walker. Journey and I have been friends for, it feels like forever, but maybe 7 or 8 years now. And I was talking to Journey about credit, fixing my credit, rebuilding credit. And she looked at my credit and she said, you don't really need to do a bunch of things, but I have this friend, Bill, he does life insurance, and you can be your own banker, which life insurance and being your own banker did not go together when we first talked about it. So it was an odd concept. And she said, this is how wealthy families continue to create wealth. So I have a plan to do a non-for-profit with foster kids. And she said, well, this is a good way to get started to finance yourself. So a little over a year ago, I contacted Bill and he gave me the best speech of his life. And he told me he showed me this really good slide. And I work in finance currently as a profession. I do retirement benefits. And he was explaining to me how people manage debt and how you pay it off. And it just started to make a lot of sense. And the honest part about it is we work towards something always. And are we working towards just getting out of debt or managing your debt, or actually creating wealth for yourself? And as Bill, the more I talked to Bill and the way he kind of explained just how you can pay off your debt and actually make your debt work for you instead of working for creditors and your lenders, it just made a lot of sense. So I made the decision to go ahead and make that commitment. So I made that commitment last year, and the biggest test came right when I signed up. So right when I signed up, I signed up in May, and the day before my very first payment came for building my banking, my car caught fire in my garage and my house caught on fire. And in that moment, I had a choice. So that in the choice, at the time was very difficult, but in hindsight, it was a pretty easy choice. It was a no-brainer choice. The choice was whether or not I was going to continue doing what I've always done, which was manage the debt, or just have faith in building future, building a property, building something that I can give to my daughter, something that I can pass on to other kids information that I can share with my family and help them to do that. And so I just made that commitment because we put money, and I have friends that spend money almost daily on the lottery. And it's not because they think that they're going to win. It's just a habit. So if you're in, and that has no guarantee of payout. People play every day and no one wins. But this was something that has a payout if you just have the idea to just keep going. So I said, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is you invested your money and you get your money back and you quit. There's no real loss in spending, in learning how to spend money better, and in learning how to invest in yourself and in your family. So I decided to just do that. I was able to continue to do that. It was in the middle of a lots of uncertainty, just globally at that time. We, in the midst of the pandemic, I was able to continue to work. I was able to put money into my bank. I was able to do that. And it was just it was a disciplinary measure that helped. It was a constant, and it felt a lot better because the time did come, because it wasn't an easy thing in the midst of all of the things that were going on. It felt so much better to be able to borrow money from myself and to pay myself back than to get approved for a loan and pay astronomical interest. And when we take loans, we pay more back than what we borrowed in the first place. And I could do that for myself. It was unexpected.
Let me just say one thing. I just want to correct one thing, because we all do that. Even guys in the business, we always say, oh, you can borrow from yourself and pay yourself back. But you really know that what you're doing is you're using your money as collateral, and you're borrowing from the life insurance company. So essentially, you're using somebody else's money, and you're using it as simple interest, which is what you did, which means your money is still in there growing with interest and dividends,
Right.
But we always just say, hey, we're borrowing our own money. And I don't want the people to get the wrong impression. So you took money, you had extra money coming in, you took that money and you put it all in your policy, in the banking portion of your policy, so that you knew something was going to come up later in the year and you'd be able to get at that money when you needed it. So you put it somewhere that it was growing deferred and you could use it tax-free. So.
And it's different than taking money from your 401k, because you get that money back, and it's a different kind of loan, but it definitely has tax implications where the life insurance, taking money from your life insurance, didn't.
Did you feel any pressure? Like it's a good point you brought up. People say all the time, well, I can borrow, I can use my own money, which is one thing, but they don't think their own money has any cost. If they borrow from the bank, well, there is a cost. They're going to charge you. If you borrow from your retirement, they will set terms for you. So you're totally out of control. But you borrowed money from your policy. Did you ever get a repayment schedule from the company? Have you felt any pressure to make any payments? Have you skipped payments because you're going to put it back as you can, correct?
Right. Absolutely. And that was the blessing in being able to take care of immediate bills, because when you have something like a fire, there's so many things. Everybody, the contractor said it would be 6 weeks. It was 6, almost 7 months that we were not in our house. And I had a mortgage. The insurance company paid for the temporary housing. They paid for the housing, but they didn't pay for the utilities or the cable or the rental car. I mean, we were fortunate that we had friends that that allowed us to use their car, but we had gas and groceries, and I still had to pay mortgage and HOA fees for my house. And there were extra expenses that that I hadn't planned on, and learning. And at the time I had worked really hard to get out of debt. And it was one of those things that I felt like I was out of debt, but right back in a very short amount of time. But being able to be my own banker, and to be able to continue to work towards financial freedom in the midst of the difficulties was a little bit of soundness. Because even if I wanted to quit, if I had said today that I wanted to quit, I don't really lose much. There's a lot of things that we can invest in, and you're still gonna, it's a much safer calculated risk for people that are super conservative with their money. We pay extra money on our credit cards because we think that we can, if we pay that off, we'll have that money to spend. But during the pandemic, I paid off a credit card and then they closed it. No reason, no warning. They just said that I was a bigger credit risk than when I opened the card, but I had paid that card off, and it was money that I thought I would be able to have, but it wasn't, because it was a credit limit. I paid my credit limit off, but then they closed my card. I didn't have any control over that. This is my bank, and I control that.
You brought a great point. You bring up great points, because what you just brought up is the fact that, and most people that are going to listen to this, they do exactly what you just pointed out. They let somebody else control the banking function in their life, whether they take loans from a bank, whether they use credit cards. And what happens is several things happen to you. You drove home one day and your house went on fire, a surprise, life's little happenings. You were expecting to have a credit card that you could use in case you were in a jam, and through no fault of your own, somebody who doesn't know you, has never met you, made a decision that, as your shirt says, you're unworthy for their credit. Well, guess what? Maybe they're unworthy for you, because over time, you'll still have your credit cards. The difference is it won't be debt. You'll be using their money, which they make out of thin air, but you're going to be using money for 30 days. And when that bill comes, you're just going to take a loan against your cash value, and you're going to pay that card off completely. And then however you would have paid that credit card, $50 a month, $150 a month, 500, however you did it, you can do that with your own life insurance policy. And the good thing is, you can, if you charge yourself the same interest rate they would charge, which is 10, 15, 20, 25%, you could pay that to yourself. You'll value your own money. So through all of this, you wanted to say something, then I was going to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, through all of this, what was the thing that made you move forward? Because it would have been easy to say, hey, Bill, I got a million problems, so I know it's discipline, I know it's desire, I know it's determination, but what was the thing that made you say, hey, I gotta do this non-traditional financing. I gotta break out of the mold?
I honestly just wanted something different. I wanted to be able to have more. I have enough debt. I didn't want to accumulate any more of that. So I just wanted, because I'm like, I trust Journey. And she was like, Bill's gonna get you set up straight. And I said, well, if it doesn't work, you can always quit. And it's not easy. I wouldn't recommend it. If you have more excuses to not, then it's something that is going to take discipline. It does take work. Will we spend money on things that we don't need, or that things that hurt us every day? We eat out too much, or we go and drink too much, or go party too much. We do those things every day. And it's nothing wrong with those things if that's what you like to do, but why not invest in yourself? And
Right.
I'm just starting. It's just it's an investment. We play the lotto. We want to, ride the wave of different markets, stock markets, and different things like that. And it's not that those things are bad. I have a savings account. I still have a savings account. There are investments, but but everything's a calculated risk. Why not invest? Why not?
Right. Through the pandemic, with the ups and downs, your bank never went down. Every day, it constantly moves forward. Your cash value grows. It compounds daily. It never goes down. So, okay, you've gone through this. You went through the pandemic. How do you foresee this benefiting your future? Because I know you have a daughter, and she's going to be going to high school, and then the college comes, and there's going to be a whole bunch of other, life surprises with that. So how do you see that benefiting your family moving forward?
I think that it's definitely given me a shorter amount of time in which to pay my other debts off, and to be able, it's such a good feeling to know that if I'm paying myself off from the loans that I take, that the interest that I was giving away for free to the bank comes back to me. That's something that gets my daughter the car, or the extra senior pictures, or helps her buy her house. It puts her in a better position than where I started. And then she gets to grow that thing, that the non-for-profit for foster children, kids get to benefit from that. And then they get to learn this early, because it's something that I can, as I do this and learn more about it and perfect mistakes, because we all make them, then they get to start off better and in a better knowledgeable position than when I started. So then that means that someone else gets to learn from them, and then they get to do better than where they started. It's kind of a wonderful chain reaction that's better than starting a GoFundMe. If something happens to me, I know that my daughter doesn't have to worry about trying to figure out where the money's going to come from if something happens to me, because I've already prepared for that.
Yeah, and that's always, I know when people, I'm sure when Journey told you, oh, call Bill, it's life insurance, like you said in the beginning, like, wow, life insurance. Well, I have debt. Everyone always tells me the same thing. I have debts. I don't really care about life insurance, but it does give you a peace of mind knowing that if something does happen to you, she's prepared. We know you're probably going to live another 40, 50, 60 years. And as you get older, that death benefit is going to be there for her and maybe your grandchildren, you know.
Yeah.
So do you, I know you said you foresee using it with the foster business. Do you plan on, even as these people you work with, do you plan on educating them on
I
how
think there's a scripture that says that we perish for the lack of knowledge. If the knowledge is there, the information is there. So why not? I'm all about educating people on things that you shouldn't be the only keeper of the stuff that and this is a great way to do better, to do more than what you started off to do. And it's a great resource. So why not build your resources? It's a great way to just continue to build the resources, because we have so many times that we don't build the resources. And one of the things that you said at the very beginning when we first, when you were introducing this program to me, was that we get life insurance for everybody else, but you don't get to benefit from that. But this is where everybody wins. If something happens to me, my kids and my family, they benefit, but I can also actively benefit from the policy. When I need it, I can get it because it's my money.
Nobody asked you when you borrowed what you needed it for, what you were using it for. They didn't ask you, are you working, how much money you're making. You just signed a piece of paper, and a couple of days later, the money was in your account.
Absolutely.
And
And
that's,
that's, you don't have to answer the questions. What is this for, and how much your debt and all of that. You get what you need. And if it's there, you get it.
so what would you say to people that, come to me and tell me things like, I never heard of this before. It sounds too good to be true. Because I know you just mentioned something, you quoted a verse in the Bible, which is Hosea 4:6. My people are lost for lack of knowledge. And I always say that Becoming Your Own Banker, the book that was written by R. Nelson Nash, is one of the greatest financial books in the world, along with the Bible. Because the Bible in Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rule over the poor. The borrower is slave to the lender. Well, in this case, you've started to unplug yourself or secede from the banking system and become your own banker. So you are not only the borrower, but you're also the lender. And when you're in that position, you can give the borrower a break when business is slow, or maybe you're out of work for a while, you got hurt or something. You don't have to make payments, where if you borrow from a third party and they control the banking function in your life, they control your money and they tell you when you have to pay. Hence, we become slaves to the lender.
Right.
So what would you say to people that would say, well, I never heard of this before, sounds too good to be true, I hear that a lot, and they don't think they can do it? If you were sitting with somebody that was on the edge, and they've all heard, oh, life insurance isn't a good investment. Well, life insurance what you're doing isn't an investment, it's banking. And if people would only understand how much money banks make on them, they could make that kind of money becoming their own bank.
Yeah.
So what if you were trying to plead with someone to save them? What would you tell them?
It works if you do.
Very simple.
Works if you work it. It works if you do. If you put, it's just like anything. If you walk every day, you're a walker. If you invest in yourself, you're an investor. If you eat bad and you're sick, it's because you worked for that. We are always working towards something. Every day you're working towards something. So you can work towards the debt and always are chasing the freedom, or you can work towards the freedom, and you will get it. It's not going to be a magical thing. If you're trying to get a quick fix, then this isn't that. This does take work, but it works if you work it.
Well, you did bring up a point that I always tell people, is you have to do your own push-ups, right?
Yeah.
I can coach you, Karen can coach you, Journey, she coached you, but you've got to, you got to show up at the starting line after doing all the training. And obviously, you see the benefit, thanks to Journey sending you. But I know you've called a couple times, and we really didn't talk that much about the policy per se. We talked about other things that were going on in your life. I remember we had a call with Karen on the line, and you're not going to get into what it was about, but we discussed that, because we're not just here trying to sell people life insurance policies. We're trying to make their lives a financial success. And, we're here not to give really advice, but it's kind of like having someone you could bounce something off that isn't involved in the situation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I really don't have anything else unless you want to go into it. What would you just say to people that are watching this and, I said, I've heard of it. I wonder what it is. We always tell them to educate themselves, read the book, and then give us a call. So as a parting thought, as a parting comment, if you wanted to be a hero to one of those people and tell them something that would make them change their life, what would it be?
We work so hard to make things better for our lives and for our families. And we do things that are really counterproductive because we're scared, or we don't, we have these worst case scenarios. We've been scammed for a lot less, and you are absolutely worth your investment. You are worth that to your families. You're worth that to yourself. And it's a great way to just invest in your future. When you don't know what to do, you keep planting seeds. I've only done this for a little over a year. And I'm an advocate for it, not because it's helped me so much in the right now, but you can see a vision and you can make it plain with this. I've seen some of the other testimonies from other people, and they've been doing it for 5 and 6 and 7 years, and to be able to pay down debt that your bank said you will be able to pay this down in 15 or 20 years, and to pay it down in 5, that takes a discipline that you need to have to create wealth for yourself. Because I was talking to a friend of mine, and they're great savers. And it's much easier I would much rather have the problem of having money and not knowing what to do with it than to not have money and need it. And this builds that, because that's a much better problem to have. And you might not have it right now. I don't have it right now, but it's one of those things that you're definitely working toward it. And you can see that. You see that in the returns. You see that in the investments. You see that in the way that you guys talk and uplift it. You guys don't make a bunch of money from me. If you get another policy, I won't ever see. It's not like a pyramid scheme where I have to go and get a bunch of people to come in and do this so that I make money. I just do what I do every day. And I consider it the paying of myself. And then I get something back from that. And it's the best way to do some financial self-care, that if you couple that with some other good practices, then you've done it. Then you've done it. And you don't have to take out $1 million policy to make this work. I don't have $1 million policy.
But well, you quoted one of the people you referenced was Helen, who did a testimonial a month or two ago, and she's been doing it like 6 years now. And to this day, she says, I still don't quite understand how it works. My husband does. She goes, but all I know is it worked. And she asked me, her and her husband asked me one time, it's like, what am I going to do with the $40,000 a year extra that I have? Because I don't have I'm not going to have a mortgage payment in another year. I'm not going to have an auto payment. I'm not going to have a second mortgage, and I'm not going to have 14 other credit cards debts that she has. She's down to 2. She started out with 17. She's down to 2. And, you just said it. It's a good problem to have. What am I going to do with the other $40,000? So what I told her, think about your grandchildren. You can start setting them up, but it's not just about the money. It's about educating them, educating them how to use it. I mean, just think of your daughter. If you had this when she was born, 15 years later, as she grows up, the money's there for her and she'd never have to go to, a bank, maybe for a mortgage initially, but then, pay that mortgage off in less than 9 years, and basically you didn't really take any money out of your pocket, right? Didn't we just redirect money that you were spending somewhere else? Like you mentioned, overpaying credit cards, paying more than the minimum, trying to pay them down.
Absolutely. Yep.
Which is what would have happened here. You didn't expect, for your house to go on fire, and you would have had, even if you had overpaid the credit cards to get them down, now you don't have that money, so you'd have to use the credit card again. But in this case, it's just sitting there. It's just waiting for either an opportunity or one of life's surprises to come up.
Yep. And it's the good fallback guy that it's a peace of mind knowing that you get to have extra money if you need it, but it's more than an emergency fund. It's more than just a savings account or the money in the mattress sort of thing. It is banking for yourself, and it's a good investment. At the end of the day, you can talk yourself out of it, but I say try it, and if you don't like it, you can always quit. It's a good.
Yeah, usually the people that get talked out of it, they have a misconception of what life insurance is that they got from somebody else. And that's the problem. If they are willing to listen and not have the arrival syndrome, which is, hey, I already know all there is to know. If they can get over that, then they're well on their way to changing their financial life, and for the first time really being in control of what they do. Because down the road, you only started, but 5 years down the road, you'll be like Helen. You'll be doing another one going, look at what I did, and once people see how it works, they end up usually getting more. They'll buy another one on themselves. They'll do another one for maybe your daughter, and that's just the progression because they realize, hey, this works. It's not an investment, Financial advisors, and I don't knock them, but financial advisors are great. They give great advice. But I always tell people is that one thing they're terrible at, and there's only one person that can do this, and he doesn't sell financial advice. They're terrible at predicting the future. They don't know when the coronavirus is going to hit, and they don't know, let's say it's on September 10th, 2001, 20 years ago, right? People got advice from their financial advisor. It was probably great advice on September 10th. But on September 11th, everything changed. And the following week, the advice that they got, they still lost half their money. Now, it wasn't the financial advisor's fault. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them took the blame, but they can't predict the future. People that have their own bank, they don't have to worry about that. That money's there. And that's, I could see with you, you have the money when you need it. It's like having a credit card, but it's your credit card.
Yep.
You're going to pay it back on your terms. Any final points? I don't want to tie up your whole day. I know you were very generous to give us your time.
I think it's a good investment. It's one of those ways that you can love yourself and you can love your family. And Bill and Karen are great when they talk to you. They've helped calm some seas over at my house. So It's great. It's a great program, and it's good to be with people that are going to talk to you honestly, and they're not going to they're not selling you something. They're giving you a good piece of investment for you. Because and if you don't like it, you can always quit. This isn't a final commitment, but it is absolutely worth it, and it will work if you work it.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I mean, what we try to do with people, we try to educate them and not sell them. You know, Karen and I always say, if we educate you enough and you take the time, whoever the client is, to educate themselves, because we can only do so much, then what will happen is they'll have the knowledge to not be sold, and they'll buy if it makes sense to them. And if they do that, if they educate themselves, they'll see how it makes sense, because you know, when we discuss things, your situation is different than every other client I have, you know. So we have to deal with people individually. It's not like buy this stock or do this or buy that. It's really setting up a bank, you know, individually. So, you know, once again, I just wanted to say, I really appreciate your time. And, you know, I know it's just before the 4th of July here, so I hope you have a great weekend. And, you know, I know Karen told me to tell you this before I got on. She said, you know, tell Sarah I said hi. And we both just got in touch with Journey. So I guess we're all good right now, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So I thank you again, and we will be in touch.
Yes.